And with regards to people taking to the streets, you see what's going on now in Hong Kong, you know, it's absolute chaos over there. And I don't, like, it's not going to be advisable. So with regards to when the riots kicked off, you know, the big London riots, the fires and all the rest of it, I should tell of supposed whistleblowing that they were ready to lock and load the units of police, and they were told to stand down to let it ferment.
They were stood down. They stood down, and there was a senior officer. Now, again, there'll be a time and a place to name this person. She went from a senior Met police officer to a chief constable, and she was in charge. And there were units were calling up from all over the UK, saying, "Our men are ready. We can come and we can help and we can stop this." And she stood everyone down. And it got to a point where Wood Green and Tottenham were getting absolutely desperate. That could have been stopped early doors, and they allowed it, putting monumental, you know, amounts of the public at risk because of the fires and, you know, the loss to business and everything else. She could have stopped that, and she didn't. She stood everyone down, and I believe she did so because she was ordered to and allowed it to continue. You know?
Yeah, I would. That is what I heard, and it makes sense when you know these people operate, because it also seems, and as a result of that, there was a lot more. Like when I served my 7 years, at one point I spent some time with a fella. He got 4 years for inciting riots on Facebook. So there was laws introduced.
I'm going to give you a first-hand example of that. When the student riots occurred, I was seconded, just dragged in to a unit that was investigating the rioting, right? And I spent a lot of time in the central London courts with the students, right? And they put on, we had a barrister, 2 barristers were sent down from the CPS to work with us 24 hours. They were on call. The courts opened 24 hours. Never happened before. 24-hour courts right the way through, right? We never went home. We stayed at work. It was just full on. And there was, the students were being sent to the magistrates court, and they were all represented by the same solicitors firm, right? Bindmans represented them. Now, I watched what this firm did. This firm stitched them up, and it did. And I'll tell you how. There was one lad, right, and the judge had seen the evidence, and it was a Bow Street. It might have been Hull Street. One of the central. Anyway, I'll get a bit confused with him. But he turned around and he said, "I've seen the evidence, young man." And he said, "I've seen your antecedents. I've seen your income and everything else." He said, "I will treat you fairly." And he said, "You will walk away from my court with a fine, but you need to admit to what you've done." So his legal team jumped up and said, "You know, this isn't due process. You know, my client has a right to take this to committal, which means Crown Court, and we're going to exercise that right." And he turned around to the judge. He said, "I get that. It is his right, but I'm speaking to him and saying, son, I will treat you fairly. You will walk from here." So that kid was getting a fine, and he was going home, right? His solicitors, and they did this to most of their clients, took it to Crown Court. They got sent to Kingston Crown Court, very white, middle-class, snotty part of London. And I watched that kid get 18 months sentence, got found guilty, 18 months, and they all did. They all got sent to prison. They weren't criminals. They were just angry. Some of them were stupid what they did. They got carried away, and that was that. But the effort that they put into policing was monumental, and the budget was phenomenal. So why can't they do that for child abuse? Why?
Well, this is it, isn't it? It's allocation of resources for whatever they deem fit. So what do you know about how much more equipment and stuff that was bought? I saw reports of them buying a lot more kind of these almost American-looking kind of response vehicles after the riots then.
Yeah,
response.
Water cannons, and yeah, they had these big blue trucks, these armoured ones.
Yeah, like Americanized blue trucks. Yeah. So
yeah, they're all based down in Gravesend, down in Kent. That's their centre for it all. That's where the water cannons and everything else are. But yeah, there were a lot of them. They were driving around all over the place. And also, what they did during the riots, they did forced mobilisation, so that they dragged everyone in from all around the country. And this was just before they started making like what they call tri-counties. where they started amalgamating things like Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, and I think now Thames Valley, which is a huge force which goes from Milton Keynes in the north, has now tied in with Hampshire, so the officers can operate from Milton Keynes to the Isle of Wight. Massive. But the Scottish forces were brought down, right? Strathclyde and Lothian Borders and all them. They've got no jurisdiction. So they were dragged into a big hall, and the commissioner read out some sort of bit of legislation, giving them all jurisdiction for a period of time, you know, so, or you know, extending their jurisdiction to the UK. And then when it was finished, then they withdrew it. So different to ours, and they've got no power to work down here, and vice versa. But they were given it, so you know they can do it if they want to. And that was
they
the
can
case.
do whatever they want, doesn't it?
And the one thing is the military can't operate because you know that's just a constitutional thing. That's why the royal family are protected by the police and not by the military. You know, whereas I think everywhere they have the military protecting, whereas here we've still got a civilian police force that does it. It was explained to me the ins and outs of why, but I got bored enough and bottom.
Yeah, no, I forget more than I retain myself, so I can relate to that, John. I've been hearing about this stuff with the live life claim, and which then makes you a non-combatant with regards to kind of potential military occupation. There's so much going on with all that, the Lisbon Treaty and all the rest of it. You can just get absorbed in all of it, so I tend not to. It'll be what it'll be. It's so much just distraction and shenanigans. I tend not to take too much time.
When there was a lot of stuff coming out from the alternate media and the freemen and all this, and there was going on about the City of London being a principality of its own right, and it was only when that because of my case that there's going to be some issues with the City of London police, and I went before the policing minister and we were discussing it, and he turned around to me and said they're a law unto themselves, and I said, have you got any jurisdiction over them? He went, no one has. He said, even Parliament has got no jurisdiction over them. And when you look at their warrant cards, they're the only police force in the Commonwealth, you know, so even Jamaica, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and these overseas dependents, they've got what they call the King Edward's coronet, which is the crown. And that is on the insignia of the military and on the police. But the City of London's got 2 griffins. There's no coronet on it at all. So there's no, you know, so even he knew that you know, on a parliamentary level, the City of London is on its own.
Yeah, we're all in jurisdictions, aren't we? And then it comes, you know, you've got the City of London, its own principality, the one world currency, and Vatican's got its own principality, the one world religion, Washington DC, one world military, and then the Bank of International Settlements over in Basel, they're above and beyond the law as well. Have you seen the Roland, you would have seen the Roland Bernard videos, right? The Dutch banker, the elite banker. Did you see his stuff?
Yeah, Roland Bernard.
Roland Bernard, yeah.
Yeah, I've met him. Yeah.
Okay. Him. What did you make of Roland?
Yeah, strange man.
Strange?
Yeah, very strange guy. Yeah.
I imagine the life he's led will do that to you.
I think he's got more to say than he'll ever say, to be honest.